And we are live. Welcome to 2D Shazam Thoughts Film. Thought I'd put the 2D part right up front since, yeah, I don't know why my theater didn't have a showing of this in 3D. But anyway, just real quick FYI. In the last half hour, I really don't think I ate that much candy. But like half an hour ago, I felt like my entire body was like 80% sugar. And now I've kind of come down from that. So I'm a little sleepy, but I really love this movie and I really want to talk about it. So I'm gonna try to power through any, but just in case I seem a little woozy or whatever, that's why. Now, this video contains spoilers, including for earlier entries in this franchise. It's a long video, but there are time codes for the different sections in the description box. Now, my own film critic rating for this is 9 out of 10, and my personal rating is also 9 out of 10. And in both cases, it's real close to a perfect 10, but there are just a couple of things. I kept thinking, well, this thing isn't that bad, and this other thing isn't that bad, but if you put them all together, ultimately they do come to, yeah. I mean, if I was going by like something out of 100, if 100 was a perfect movie, it would be like a 95 or a 94 or so. Just excuse me, just not completely, yeah. Anyway, let's see. Yes, so notes taken while watching. Going to be going from the pad of paper as usual. This was one of the, this came extremely close to me needing to use more than one pad, which I always make sure to bring two, because I'm a nerd. Usually it's only MCU movies that require me to use more than one, but this came extremely close. Now, the movie is an hour and, there's that ooziness, 2 hours and 3 minutes if you don't count the end credits, and 2 hours and 13 minutes if you do count the credits, and you definitely want to sit through the credits. Now, yeah, just to get this out of the way, I really appreciate that at no point in the movie is like, there's never a, yeah, there's never a woman sexualized against her will, much less does that ever happen on screen. I really appreciate that. That is something, yeah, I'm gonna leave that there because I know people get pissed when I talk about that. Let's see. Besides which, there are people who express it better. Now, let's see. I like that, you know, we genuinely open on these thunder clouds, and you know the logos and opening credits are over these thunder clouds. And I do briefly want to say I agree with, you know, among others, Film Brain say that when the Seven Deadly Sins are on screen, it does get a little bit too much of a, it leans too heavily into horror, considering that ultimately, I mean, it is a PG-13, and this is supposed to be a movie that children can watch, you know. I think the movie does push it a little too far for anyone not at least 13, which I do think is a mistake, because if you tamed that down, I suppose is maybe the word, then this could be watched by basically like 7-year-olds and up. You know, yeah, there are adult jokes, but they're just like, you know, the kids aren't going to understand what's really going on. You know, as always, if you're a parent, you know, if you can watch it by yourself before, I know that's expensive with theater tickets, but maybe more the fact that, try to talk to people who have, I haven't read the IMDb Parents Guide, but that one's often very useful. And talk to people who have watched it. Don't just plant your kids in front of it without having done any research. Now, let's see. Yeah, I get that the director wanted to go that route, and I appreciate that. I just think it should have been, like, trim that out and then, like, put it in, like, make a DVD release or Blu-ray release where it's, like, unrated or something, but it's one of the few mistakes that they made when they made the movie. And you also think, the sins apparently, I don't know, it's possible this is also in the comic, but unless I missed it, they never actually communicate by moving their lips. So I'm guessing telepathy, but I mean, is that maybe just a way to avoid, to cut down on costs of CGI? Because they're also, I don't know, they are ultimately they have a decent amount of screen time, even if a lot of it is in the climax, but that's not too big of a problem. But every single time they say something, you don't see their lips move, and it has that audio effect that connotates that it's a voice you're hearing, but it's not coming from, frequently telepathy, excuse me. I guess that was what I had to say about that. Now, Thaddeus' father is, I want to say the actor's name is John Glover. He's hilarious, even if only very briefly, in RoboCop 2. And, yeah, he's in Batman and Robin. I don't think he gives the performance that he was directed to, like everybody else in that movie. It's a terrible movie, but I don't think you should hold it too much against the actors. They seem to just be doing, anyway. Then you have right, what I especially want to get at is, he is the father of Lex Luthor on Smallville. And in that, and in this, he is just, he says he tries to push his kid to be stronger and such, and it just really leads to this kid being miserable and unhappy. So, yeah, I mean, they do, it's a good use of the actor in both cases. And Thaddeus is taken to, is transported to Shazam's, what's it called, cave lair, and it's a genuinely scary scene. I don't think it quite pushes it too far for, let's see, actually, yeah, maybe for a 7-year-old, not for like a 10-year-old, but yeah, yeah, I really think they should have toned it down at least a little bit. Anyway, I've already talked about that. And yeah, so the first scene is an introduction to the villain, and it doesn't have to be every single time, but when you're making a comic book movie, it is a good idea to open on either the villain or the hero, and to have this really like dominant kind of like have something happen that really defines them. It's also done in other, happens in regular action movies, or horror movies as well. But it's a good, it's something you'll see in a lot of superhero comic books, because basically, the idea is that like a 7-year-old picks up the book off the shelf at a store, and he opens to the first page. If that first page doesn't grab him and get him to, at least flip through a couple more pages, then he's going to put it down and pick something else up. And, before he flips through too many pages, he himself, his mother, the clerk, whatever, someone's going to be like, you can't just flip through that here. You got to buy it if you're going to read the whole thing, And let's see. Yeah, so it's a good idea, and it's also a really good scene. I appreciate that Thaddeus' father, points for creativity, but if you name your kid Thaddeus, if he doesn't end up becoming, not necessarily a supervillain, but at least evil, he has serious, incredible self-control. Or is incredibly lucky to not be mistreated enough. Anyway. And we're told about the 7 deadly sins as beasts, and the sins convince Thad to do the evil thing by trying to take the eye, which immediately reminded me of Thief, which, yeah, it's there's that thing about, don't remind people of a better, piece of fiction within your, this is one of the cases where they actually, no, you know what, yeah, Thief and this movie, the first 2 Thief games and this movie are amazing. And the wizard, tells Thaddeus and the audience, only the purest heart can resist temptation. I appreciate I think the car crash, I think they did first there's just the thing of, you expect when when Thaddeus' dad, he turns the car, really, really suddenly, because he's scared when Thaddeus, yells out or something like that. You think that the car is going to crash as he's, turning it really quickly. And his father says, you could have gotten us. Does it say you could have gotten us killed, or you could have gotten us in a car crash? Something like that. And then, a car rams the car. I thought that was a good, because when it doesn't happen right away, it's what's it called, a psych out? It works. I genuinely thought, oh, okay, we are not doing a car crash. We're just doing a car crash scare. But then it did go through with it, and it was that much more effective, because it's pretty spelled out. There's going to be a car crash or something in this scene, no matter how exactly it's going to happen. And let's see. And Thaddeus is completely devastated by, the wizard Shazam also said, that he wasn't good enough. And yeah, the car crash is really just absolutely epic. It really, yeah. Let's see. And let's see. Was it? I think it's the brother who tells Thaddeus, you did this. And, Thaddeus looks at the 8-ball, and now it says, find us. And, let's see. Yeah, and, that whole opening thing takes place in 1972. And now in the present day, and we're, the wizard sends out this thing of, like, find me. No matter how long it takes, how many failures we must endure, find me a new champion. And, Thaddeus, as an adult, we see that he's been, the people that have had the same experience as him, excuse me. Yeah, he's trying to get information from them so that he can go back there. And the seventh sentence says, to the wizard, you don't have enough. Soon you won't have enough magic to stop us. And Billy called the cops to the pawn shop, and he locks them inside the pawn shop. And at first it's like, wow, this kid, he's actually doing this to cops. But then we find out, it's so he can find his mother. But he didn't exactly have to steal the, what was it, like steak something. Let's see. And let's see. Yeah, and as a kid, he what's the term? Got lost or something in like from his mother in this like carnival thing. And there was this really weird thing. See, the movie wasn't in 3D, but there was this kind of 4D thing going on, where like, I don't know how they paid for this, because the ticket cost the same thing as for a normal 2D showing. But during this scene, and during almost every single scene that involves the Foster family, there would be like the ushers, they would come up in front of you, and they would start cutting onions in front of you. It was very strange. I should clarify, I did not cry in the movie theater. I do not cry in movie theaters. I am not gonna like have to walk past complete strangers with any kind of evidence that I've cried, which I do think, that's gotta suck for people who make really sad movies, because I'm far from the only person who does not want to cry in a movie theater. But anyway, yeah, it really, really got me. It got me almost, well, let me think. With Wonder Woman also really, really got to me, and especially on rewatches. But yeah, this got to me more than the first time I watched Wonder Woman. But yeah, it's probably around the same level as rewatching Wonder Woman. Now, so Thaddeus, is really attached to his 8-ball, and Billy is really attached to this like little, keychain ball compass thing. So I have to wonder if this movie is trying to communicate that, kids really shouldn't get too attached to these ball things that, their parents might have a special relationship with. I don't know. I'm gonna sound like CinemaSins here, but I just have to briefly point out this is like, what did they say, the 12th possible mother that he's found, so why is he still like, no, he seemed really certain that it was her. But it was the last name he had, though, wasn't it? It was the last name he found that had the same last name as him. So he figured this has to be it. Yeah, okay. Objection withdrawn. And yeah, he's like, I can take care of myself. And the social worker, or whatever it's called, is like, when you're 18, yeah, it's insane the kind of things that people with power can do to you if you're not of legal age yet. And from right away, the foster family, they're really, really sweet, and yeah, they're clearly definitely trying to make a safe, stable, fun home for Billy. And I liked Freddy from right away. I mean, I kind of figured I would. I did in the trailers, but still, yeah. And we meet Thaddeus as an adult, and he's now played by Mark Strong. I realized that they needed something like this as a plot point, but it was a little weird to me that this one woman could record video of like the symbols. I mean, I get that, excuse me, it's not video recorded while she was while she was in Shazam's lair. So it's not quite that, but still, like, if it makes technology act kind of weird, I don't know, it just seems like it should be giving off energy that would disrupt that kind of thing, but they definitely did need some kind of, and yeah, and he goes over, the sequence of the symbols, and she touches the door after the symbols are put on there, and she just melts, whereas he can open the door, not merely talk about it. And Thaddeus confronts the wizard, and he's like, do you even remember me? I remember you. Let's see. And yeah, and Thaddeus says, I've been thinking about this for all these years, going over my, and what he realized, I am not pure of heart, and he picks up the eye. I really, really like the, mythology in this. Honestly, it's I don't think I've read any Shazam. I have read a little of the Captain Marvel. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with Shazam, since that's what it's for clarity. So but I have to admit, if with this kind of mythology, I'd like to. And the eye is now Thaddeus' right eye. And let's see. Thaddeus attacks the wizard. And the bullies almost hit Freddy with their car. And then they're like, you dented it, you gotta pay for it. Or, I mean, I guess they did basically hit him. They just didn't hit him so hard that it would, like, break too much of his body. But, yeah, it's pretty wild. And, the thing that makes Billy turn around and go back and help is when they say, "What are you gonna go cry to mommy?" Oh right, you don't have a mommy and you haven't got one or something, and then Billy turns around and comes back, and yeah. Am I remembering this correctly? Did Darla seriously like go up and tell the bullies to leave her brother alone? That is seriously, Darla's really cool. She's got so much courage, and she's really trying to be nice, and this whole, yeah. Let me think. Is this? I think by this point in the movie, there's already been the bit where, like, let's see, Billy goes to school, and like, Darla gives him a hug in the hallway in public, and he's like, you don't have to do that. It's we're not really brother and sister, and she's like, I forget what she says, but it just, yeah, she walks away and she's really sad, and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make her sad, and yeah, they should have just, I get that they can't call it Captain Marvel because of rights issues, and Shazam is maybe a little confusing. Maybe they should have just called it Captain Fields. And let's see. Yeah, and we're told, 56. Yeah, sorry. This is, again, I realized this happened early in the movie. Then, where I am in, chronologically speaking. But things were moving so fast at that time, so I didn't write it down at the time. And then there was this spot where I didn't really have anything to note, so I noted it. But yeah, so 56, with dozens of people were tested by the wizard. I think all of those were in the U.S. and some of them are as early as 1972, and it's possible some of them were further back. That Thaddeus wasn't necessarily the first one. He was just the one where it really defined his life. So the let's see. I mean, he was probably gonna be, with the kind of the way that people were treating him, he probably was gonna end up in some kind of bad way. But anyway, let's see. And apparently it's only the one who recorded video, which makes sense. The others just didn't. Although, I mean, everybody's filming everything today, so. But maybe that was the only very recent one, I guess. It's possible. Or maybe that was the only one they were able to find, whatever. It was the first time that one, maybe the others just, yeah, it's fine. It's not a big problem. I like how the hologram tells the backstory, and I really wish I got to watch that in 3D. Let's see. And, Shazam, the wizard, says, you can't give magic to anyone other than the truly good person. And, Billy says, I'm not sure there is even a single good person at all. And, it's this message of good being rewarded. And I like, he's like, touch my rod. And he's like, ew. And let's see. And the wizard turns to dust, which makes me wonder if the snapping just happened. But then the rest of the movie doesn't seem to indicate. Excuse me. And people stare and laugh about Shazam's clothes. It starts with the one guy in the subway, just talking about, oh, this shouldn't work, but it does. And the let's see, we're told earlier that Freddy realized that Billy stole his bullet, and then Billy has to prove that even though he doesn't look like Billy, that is him. And so he's like, okay, fine, I did actually steal your bullet. And he picks it up, and because he's not used to how his hands are now that he's an adult, he accidentally drops it into the sewer. That was very funny. I appreciate that the humor did get. I mean, I can understand if parents that think that it's the humor is just too much for their 7-year-old. But yeah, actually, you know what? I guess ultimately they are aiming for the 13-year-olds with beyond the sins. I have to admit, I thought that there was going to be a thing of like how the bullets that bounced off Shazam in the convenience store, 7-Eleven, whatever, that those were going to be sold for a lot of money. Then one of them was going to go to Freddy. Maybe it was cut to make up for the one that he stole and dropped. Billy did. And let's see. And he tries to launch into flight, but falls. And it was pretty funny how, like, he's like, okay, I'm gonna go invisible, and he's like, where are you? I can't see you. And then, like, someone yells from afar that, like, oh man, I don't remember the words, but they're like mocking his suit. So giving it away. It was pretty funny. And it's about the lightning powers, the super speed. Excuse me. Excuse me. Maybe it was a little too much sugar. And let's see. He tries to stop this mugging, and like she just has, and he's trying to say, well, I mean, I get to, and the funny is just, you are really on top of this. Let's see, and he's like this old lady, and she's like, I'm the same age as you are. And it's just, teenagers look at adults and think that that's also one of my favorite jokes from Akira. Now, let's see. And, 7-Eleven, they realize that he has bullet immunity, and then, it's like, maybe it's just the suit that's bulletproof. Shoot him in the head. Yeah, shoot me in the, wait, shoot me in what? Or shoot me in the face, sorry. Let's see. Yeah, and the first person that Shazam tries to save, had actually saved herself. It was a good kind of, what's it called? Trope inversion, and subversion of expectations. This freaking back. Let's see, and Thaddeus confronts his father and brother in a boardroom meeting. And apparently, he does work for the same place, apparently, because they don't say, what are you doing here? You don't work here. But he's not a board member. And let's see. And Thaddeus actually throws his brother out the window of the skyscraper. Let's see, and the sins. We see them first time. They're not just statues or like, air or whatever. We see their bodies in the boardroom. Very nicely designed. And at this point I noted great effects so far. I honestly thought the effects were great throughout. And yeah, and they tell Thaddeus, kill the champion before he reaches his full potential, or he will defeat you. And this is where I noted they must be telepathic, because we never see them, never see their lips move. Excuse me. apologies for the dead air. Let's see. So, to get back, excuse me. Let's see. So the bullies, they basically turn around and the truck is gone, and they try to, excuse me, unlock it, and they can hear it, but they can't tell where it is. And it turns out to be above the street, and he drops it, and what's it called? Yeah, it's completely destroyed, and he's like, I don't remember the exact words, but Freddy's like, that's you're not gonna be able to get rid of that dent, so something like that. Let's see, and pretty good joke about the what I can't look innocent and make. He's like, nah, you got a face. You look like you're up to something, and then the security guard is also like, yeah, you look like you're up to something. And you have a montage of them, testing his powers, set to Queen. What's it called? Don't Stop Me Now or something. And let's see. Yeah, and it all gets filmed and put on YouTube, and they become famous, and that is realistically, if teenagers got superpowers, that is what they would do with them today. And I like the fire immunity gag. It's like, okay, let's test if you can teleport from one of these boxes to the other. And then he's like, okay, secret test, fire immunity, and pours a little bit of flammable liquid on, makes a trail, and yeah, that was really, really funny. And let's see, yeah, and jumping back just a little bit, I like that Shazam poses as their dad, and the thing, Moran, it's Moran, with just this, let's see, yeah, you have the, oh, you know what, my dad's just off screen, he walks, Shazam, oh, hey, my son is just off screen. That was really good. And it's like, oh, so you're the security guard that all the kids are, really hyped about. And he's like, I didn't realize that. And then Freddy's like, no, that's the other one. You shouldn't say that. I'm gonna have a word with him. And let's see. And Freddy argues, the thing is as much my thing as your thing. Let's see. I think I started to write something here, and then something in the movie. Okay, I'm just gonna read, and maybe it'll make sense to you. I wrote won't, and then there's a couple of empty spaces. Billy, not hand. Let's see, and oh, that's right. Sorry. Obviously, excuse me. It's that they're at the table, and Billy won't put in his hand when they're like all hands on deck, and there's a discussion at the table, and Freddy and Billy, some of the other foster kids later say, they're arguing like they were arguing like a married couple. That's absolutely true. That's exactly what it was. And the thing with, he's got such a lame costume. Well, maybe he didn't get to pick his costume. Just as funny that it's like they don't know that they're talking about you. There's no need to take it personal. And let's see. Yeah, just the different ones have different things to say, and I think Billy ends up leaving, and then someone's like, Darla, you always have something to say. Why aren't you talking? And she's like, oh, I'm eating. Let's see. And Shazam saves Mary from the she almost walks into the street, and excuse me, really itchy. There we go. Excuse me. Let's see. And I appreciate that. That is how accidents happen. You're thinking about something else. She, in her state, she shouldn't be. She should probably sit down and really let the letter land so that she can, and he has to go, how did you know my name? Oh, I have intuition powers. And and she's like, well, yeah, I got into college, but I'm not sure I want to leave here. And Billy is like, what do you mean? Of course you want to leave here. Everybody wants to get away, because that's his perspective. He's always trying to get away and leave the foster family. And that was also pretty funny, that like, what, you're sending me back to that foster family? No, they don't want you back. Ouch. Excuse me. And he even says, families are for people who can't take care of themselves. That was, that really is, that does sum up the way that, that's how it would appear. That's the perspective of someone who's always trying to get away from the, Excuse me. I think I saw at least one review, excuse me, that was like, this Billy kid, he doesn't want any family if it's not blood, excuse me, blood relation. But then, I mean, that's the whole point, though. That's his arc. At the start of the movie, he doesn't. Over the course of the movie, he comes to realize, you're not supposed to start out perfect at the start of the movie. You have to learn something. And everybody laughs at Freddy because Shazam doesn't show up. And Shazam hits the bus with lightning because he's not being careful in using lightning, excuse me. And he actually thought this small mattress could, that the people on the bus could like jump out of the bus and they'd be safe because of that little mattress. And then let's see, the bus falls, he catches it, and then he's got to get the dog to leave so that he can put the bus down, and he has some real pathos with Freddy. And he points out, you have all this power and you're a show off and a bully, not a hero. And let's see, and we find out, Thaddeus shows up and realize, he can hurt Shazam, Shazam can hurt him. Let's see. And now he's learning to fly, and at first he's just floating just above ground. And it says run over and then, what's that, repeatedly? Yeah, I don't know what I wrote. And Thad and Shazam fight. Let's see. And he turned into Billy so he could disappear in the crowd, because Thaddeus doesn't know what he looks like. And Mary figures out that Billy is Shazam. And Dora's just like, you figured it out, and I didn't have to give it away. You knew about this? I'm a good sister. And Thaddeus realizes that Freddy is, knows Shazam because of the footage. And so he forces Freddy to take him to the group home. Let's see, and, excuse me. Billy meets his mother, and we find out she did actually, intentionally leave him and intentionally not find him after. And, she says, I was 17, my dad had just kicked me out, and your dad didn't want to be any part of, And she said, the cops could take care of you better than I could. And she said, now's not really a good time. And she doesn't even remember what the keychain ball compass was supposed to, to him it meant the world, but yeah. Let's see. And he says you might need it more than I do, and oh yeah, I'm doing good, but I just wanted to tell you I'm doing well, but now I have to get back to my real family. And it's like I did think that was pretty good. I mean, it's cliche, but I mean, there's really no way. Once you've gone down that path, either she's perfect and they end up super happy together, and that's cliche, or this. And I mean, I did wonder a little, like, shouldn't he help her, since clearly, I mean, the guy she's with, it sounds like she's kind of afraid of, but it's not that kind of movie. It's too bad. I do think that it would have been like, but then I mean, if the movie had gone like she just outright hates him and doesn't want anything to do with him, that would have been too much of a downer. But now that we know that it's not that she just like hates him, it's just she can't really, anyway. And they go to the wizard's lair, and let's see, and they're supposed to transfer power to Thaddeus, and the 7 deadly sins are all there, and we get a nice 360-degree shot. And Freddy threw a batarang at Thaddeus' head. I quite appreciate that. That was a good, And it fits because he does have super speed, So, but he didn't get out of the way because he didn't, And we see that Thaddeus was cut by the batarang, and when the sins entered his body, the cut was healed. Which is, again, a great, just, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but just something like that, so that you completely understand how that works. And it's, before then, you're like, you don't quite know how they're going to be able to defeat him. And we see, Croc's playing poker, and these various doors, the different realms or whatever it's called, I like that. That was a good, yeah. And there's the one with like the Venus flytrap thing, and the door that leads back to the group home. You know, they close from that side. And you know, it's like, okay, think of anywhere but here, and it's the strip club. And I think Mary's like, that was the first thing you thought of, and like, you know, they leave, and you know, Freddie made sure to get like, you know, chicken wings or something like that, and Dora's like, is that glitter? Can I get glitter? And I think Freddie's the one who says, not from them. And Santa, I like how that's like a running gag. I mean, there's got to be at least 3 separate times where Santa encounters Thaddeus and or at least one of the sins, and he's just freaking out about it. And yeah, there at the end when he's on camera, it's not that he's, you know, it's not that the sins are just off camera. It's just that he's still freaking out about it. And the bullies are stuck on the Ferris wheel. Let's see. Transform to hear not. I don't know what that means. Sometimes I can read my own notes. Let's see. So, the sins chase the foster kids. And hunger has like a mouth for a stomach, which reminded me of From Dusk Till Dawn, which I appreciate. And one of them, you know, grabs Shazam and does the "We Have a Hulk" move. Or sorry, not the "We Have a Hulk," the puny god move. The "We Have a Hulk" move is not that. And Thaddeus gives Billy an ice swirly, and we find out that if you yell underwater, it doesn't count. So I guess the idea is that there's some force that has to hear you utter the words. Now let's see. And you know, the let's see. Yeah, and you know, Thaddeus says, that's not bad, but I have a better one. It's four words. First word starts with a K, and when the kids are touching or being touched by the sins, that sounded way worse than I meant it. It's not quite convincing. Like the integration isn't completely convincing. The CG. I quite like the, you know, the all hands on deck, and then it's like, you know, okay, say my name, Billy. No. Say the name I say to become this. As funny. And you know, there are adult versions of all the foster kids, and they fight the sins, and it's more of a fair fight. Wow, I cannot believe I'm this etchy. Anyway. And there's, you know, one of the sins is this giant bat with long, sharp fingers and nails. Now, I've seen some people say, climax is CG. Well, yes, it is a lot of CG, but you can't possibly tell me that you don't see a difference between this climax and a lot of these other really CGI-laden climaxes. I mean, to see adult versions of all the foster kids and them going, I don't know. Maybe to some people, a CGI-laden finale is a CGI-laden finale, no matter what. But I really think it does a better job than a lot of these. Let's see. Is it my favorite DCEU finale or climax kind of. I mean, the one from Aquaman does come close. I guess ultimately, I think this one is the better one, yeah. And the heroes save the people on the Ferris wheel, including the bullies. It's not, and I appreciate, excuse me. It's not that, they're given the suitcase wedgie. I forget if Freddy is the one who saves them, but but that's it. It's not, yeah, it's not haha whatever. Anyway, and the bullies are very 80s school bullies, and some of the other school scenes and such are very 80s. And I really like, Darla saves Santa, and then, it's such a pure and innocent and sweet moment. She saves him, and then she's like, "It's really you. My name is Darla, and I've been very good." It's just, that's so sweet. Just, I can't even. And I'm really glad the movie didn't take that away from her. That there's not like another character who's like, "That's not Santa. It's just an actor." Now let's see. Right. I forget exactly who it is that says it, but relatively early in the film, someone says that the release of the sins will lead to more evil deeds by regular people, or maybe I'm remembering that wrong, and that was just what I read into what was said. But I really didn't feel like the movie showed that. At first, I was wondering if maybe like the bullying was going to turn out to be that, but it didn't really. Picking on a disabled kid is just, it's monstrous. But it's not clear if the bullies were doing that before, and I don't think that would have been difficult for the movie to do. I think that would have been a good idea to show, to make clearer if it happened or not. Excuse me. And Shazam taunts Envy out of Thaddeus so that he's now powerless. Excuse me. And Shazam saves Thaddeus from a fall that would have killed him. Let's see. Right, and I like that, then he, gets the demon ball eye, as he calls it. And, one of them's like, "That's really gross." And, he's walking up to them, and then he's like, "What? I can get anything I want." And they're like, "No, you have to be." And they're like, "Psych." You really thought I was gonna stick a demon ball eye into my face? Something like that. And then, all the foster kids are eating lunch with Freddy, who, once again, he goes to sit at someone else's table, and they just leave, and just, yeah. And now Shazam actually shows up and really plays it up. It's like, this guy is so cool. And these other guys, I've never met any of them, but they seem like really good people. And yeah, just the so that Freddy does get the, positive attention from the others. And let me quickly, yeah, and then he's also like, "Oh, by the way, I brought another friend." And then, like, an actor whose face we never see walks up wearing the Henry Cavill Superman suit. So that was nice, because, it's like, apparently he's not going to keep playing Superman. They're going to have an extremely hard time finding someone who's going to be as compelling as him anyway. But let's see, where was I going? But that is, Superman showing up to help someone, even if it's just by, giving them a little boost in, like, their high school hierarchy popularity rating or something. That's, yeah. And let's see. And some of the credits, some of the first of the end credits, like this kind of cartoon. And we see, among other things, Shazam stealing the Batmobile and taking Wonder Woman to prom. Prom? I thought we were suddenly sound. I'm saying it right? Prom? I don't actually expect you to be able to answer that. I'm thinking out loud. And we have the mid-credit scene where Thad is painting the symbols on the walls of his cell, and then the crayon breaks. And then we have this kind of weird, and apparently I'm not the only, just in general, not a very well-known villain. And I mean, I watched the Nerdist video where they talk about exactly how it's like, it's a big deal. It could really lead to something cool, but I don't know. I think it's possible that they may have gone a little too far in the, like, this entire movie. A lot of people don't know this character. I knew it a little bit, but I mean, it's an interesting background. Just looking at the lawsuits and stuff that meant yeah, in its history. So it's notable for that, even if you don't care about the character. I like a lot about the concept, and I think other people have hit on how, I mean, basically, when you're like 7 and you start reading superhero comics, yeah, part of the idea is oh man, I'd love to have these superpowers, and so they I forget the name, but this particular comic writer was like, well, let's make a character that's actually that. Let's make a character that's a 7-year-old kid, or whatever, a kid, teenager, who turns into an adult with superpowers. That it's a really, really clever, just and very kind of honest approach to it. Now, let me think. There was the other thing, which was that, excuse me. I guess that might have been. But yeah, I hope that a ton of people Google it or whatever after watching the movie. And because of, and then get excited. I think it's really cool. I would like to see, what was it called? Monster Society or something, show up in a movie, excuse me. That would be cool. I'd like that. Based on what talked about on Nerdist. Now, let's see. Right, and then we have the post-credit scene where, Shazam is like saying, no, I don't have telepathy with fish. What would be good for that? And, Freddy's like, because there's an insane amount of fish in the sea, so we could have an entire army. And he's got like the Aquaman t-shirt, which I don't know. I mean, it's in one of the trailers. So I don't know if maybe they didn't, maybe it wasn't supposed to be a post-credit scene and they changed something, or maybe they just didn't care if the post-credit scene was in a trailer, I don't know. And let's see. And the great voices for the sins. There was one in particular, but I couldn't tell you which. I had trouble keeping track of, excuse me, of which was which. But yeah, Shazam, the wizard, told him, your biggest strength, and he realizes it's his foster family, and they are pure of heart. I really like seeing. I would really like to see more of that. Now, let's see. Yeah, I think that brings us nicely to notes taken before watching. So as I've already said, this is a great movie, even though I know we're all getting tired of these films that are about the first part of the hero story. The orange is the hero. The orange story. I'm glad we learned the orange is Shazam. Now, let's see. I was wondering if there's going to be any 9/11 porn, since it's in a lot of these. DCU, MCU, etc. I guess. Let's see. It is fairly limited. I mean, there's the part where he tries to leap over a skyscraper and accidentally goes in through a window and people are freaked out. That might be construed as that, but other than that, it's not too much. I was wondering if poor Jim Hansu would finally be in a recently made superhero movie where I don't feel like he might as well be combined with another character once again. That's Nebula in Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and Jude Law's character, not naming some spoilers, in Captain Marvel. The other one. In this, I do think he definitely needs to be in this movie, and I think he does a really great performance. It's really wild that he now has, I mean, I realize, when you say, that he's in, let's see, 1 second, let's see, it's Captain Marvel, it's Guardians of the Galaxy 1, and that's the, right, when you say there's 3 movies, I mean, technically 2 of those, it's the same role, but it is still wild that, Now, I was wondering if this, this character in a lot of ways, Thaddeus in a lot of ways is Lex Luthor. I would definitely say this is a much better Lex Luthor than BVS. Now, for the DCU, there is a P-joke in Man of Steel, BVS, Aquaman, and Shazam. There aren't any, at least as far as I recall, in Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, or Justice League, but that's the 4 out of 7. I don't know if, and I didn't realize in the trailer you only hear the one, but really in the movie there's at least a couple. Anyway. Now, I've only seen Zachary Levi in Heroes Reborn, where he isn't funny, and Thor 2 and 3, where he isn't funny much of the time. So, they had a comedy actor bulk up to play Shazam. I mean, doesn't it make sense to hire someone already muscular who can't act? Well played, Warner Brothers. And I haven't watched very many movies with The Rock. I thought he was, I liked him in some of the things that I saw him in, such as the first Scorpion King movie, which just in general, it's not a good movie, but it's that director, I want to say, who also did The Mask and like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Just, his movies tend to be enjoyable to watch, even if they aren't always the very best. And yeah, let's see. There's like one thing that I've seen him in where it's like, oh yeah, that's I totally saw him in that, but I can't. Anyway, I could imagine he would have been a good Shazam, but I'm really glad that they gave him the role of Black Adam instead. I don't, having watched Heroes Reborn, I could see how Zachary Levi could play Black Adam, but I really think it's more the kind of thing that, yeah, I really, really hope they get to make at least one more movie with, honestly, I mean, the next, is Black Adam just getting a solo movie that falls, I mean, he starts out a hero but then becomes kind of an anti-hero and ends up a villain. I think they could do that as a movie, you don't have to have Shazam the character, only Shazam the wizard, but yeah, I think that could be really interesting. Have it in this kind of tragic way where you realize, he is now the villain. Excuse me. Now, so Shazam used to be Captain Marvel, so there's 2 Captain Marvel movies 2 months in a row. In the comics, they do call him Captain Marvel, just not in the title of his comic. And in this, as in the trivia noted, that they never do settle on a name. Maybe that's because technically his name is Captain Marvel. It's just that they can't say that in this. It would, although meanwhile, it's not like anybody actually says Captain Marvel in the Captain Marvel movie. But then a bunch of these don't have. Excuse me. Especially in the first movie that they appear, the comic's name isn't used. Now, and they have the TV spot named Lair, and they have he's not so serious. Okay, we get it. You're the fun DC. You just leave well enough alone. Now, Wonder Woman in the solo movie is the only case so far where I have no issue with the characterization of the protagonist, major character, hero or anti-hero, in the case of Suicide Squad, whoever we're cheering for, and I was wondering if this was going to be the second case. Now, I should have been more clear when I wrote this, because at this point I can't remember if what I mean is this is definitely a good, like they're a hero, because in a bunch of this, Shazam isn't really a hero. He's just using these powers. So, I mean, he's not a hero from start to finish, but he's not supposed to be, excuse me. But if that's not what it means, if what I meant with that is that the character is interesting from the very start to the very end, then I would say yes. I didn't always think that he was doing the right thing, but I never found him boring, which Aquaman is a movie, the solo movie, I love almost everything about that, but I still really don't love the Aquaman himself. But I feel like they maybe downplay the parts that were like obnoxiously like try hard. I mean, they were so worried about him still being a joke to people that they tried to make him, the Wolverine of the DCEU, which is pretty ridiculous. But I thought the adoption thing really worked. I thought I remember him as being a little bland and not that interesting, but also not like really obnoxious. I was expecting him to be very obnoxious. I was worried he would be very obnoxious. And if I recall, in Justice League, he was relatively obnoxious. There they did kind of lean into this whole, he's bad boy kind of thing. And yeah, I really didn't think that was particularly interesting. But I mean, they keep retconning these characters, so there's a chance they'll just have dropped it. I don't have any problem with the actor. Let's see. Now, I realize that Shazam has some of the same powers as Superman. The comics version was called a Superman ripoff. I use the term ripoff, I'm not saying Superman clones, since they're actual Superman clones. Anyway, the trailers make it seem like this is essentially the DCU trying to do a bright, positive Superman movie after they made Cavill's version too dark for many's liking. And I appreciate that so much is, I mean, outside of his powers, he's definitely not Superman. So, yeah. Now, I quite like the use of "My Name Is" in trailer. Now, excuse me. And now, other recent comedy superhero movies include, I should say, Spider-Man Homecoming, Ant-Man 1 and 2, Thor Ragnarok, Guardians of the Galaxy Volumes 1 and 2, and Deadpool 1 and 2. I love all of those movies, and I love this. I mean, if I had to place it, I don't think it's quite as consistently hilarious as Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, I think it's probably at about the level of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, which don't get me wrong, those are consistently hilarious, but I mean, Spider-Man Homecoming is really like, I'm gonna throw away the shovel. I'm not gonna dig myself a hole. Let's see. And let's see. And there's definitely a lot of Deadpool going on in this, although it's never quite as mature as those are. Now, but yeah, like some of those, it goes in, excuse me, it goes in and does the thing of, you know, what if taking the tropes and making some, having some fun with them. Now, let's see, Shazam official trailer number 2. Personally, I would probably shout the name before jumping off the roof, just in case, but whatever. I'm glad we do see some villain action in this trailer. I get that was not what they wanted to go for with the marketing, but in the trailers it felt like Thaddeus just appears in the movie suddenly, when in reality he's introduced before Billy is. I'm really glad the way the movie handled his character. Excuse me. Let's see. When they're flying through the air, punching each other, that looks just like the climax of Man of Steel. I guess it's supposed to, and it's just the choice they've made now. I will say I cared a lot more in this than Man of Steel. And I didn't originally think very little of Man of Steel. At first I somewhat liked it, although I knew that it was a mess in a lot of ways. I like that at first you can't tell if he did catch the bus or if it, I guess, crushed him. Some of the time this has a sort of feel of documenting what Shazam does, I guess, as if what we're seeing is what's being filmed by Freddy, and yeah, and I think that really works. I think it was a good choice. Good point that the first time you try, you probably would not, in fact, be able to jump over a skyscraper. Excuse me. And the final international trailer. For a second, the little kid thinks that he's the one that made the hero and villain fly into each other by doing the same thing with his toys. Good point that you probably wouldn't be able to hear the guy monologuing if he's talking at normal volume when he's really far away. And I liked how they made that, like, excuse me, that's like a thing. Let me think. Yeah, like, there are other times where Thaddeus has this really cliche bad guy monologue lines, but here especially, he's like, I am the only one who can, I will feast on your heart, you know, all this ridiculous stuff. And you know, as he's saying that, it cuts back to Shazam, who's like, what? I can't, there's like miles between us, there's cars and traffic, you're speaking at a normal volume, I can't hear, I see you moving your mouth, I can't hear you. Just, that was really, really good. I like that a lot. And Freddy points out that Aquaman's powers of talking to fish would be extremely useful, and you know, this either became the post-credit scene or they put the post-credit scene in the trailer. Now, let's see, the video top 10 things critics are saying about Shazam. One of them is scary when appropriate. I have not watched the 2 horror movies that the director directed. Great fight scenes, I have to agree. Perfect family movie, yes. Emotional moments, yes. Nailed the tone, yes. Throwbacks to the 90s, yes. Great acting, yes. Reference, yes. Humor, yes. Among DC's best offerings today. I would have to read yeah. Wonder Woman solo movie, Aquaman solo movie, and Shazam are the 3. You know, I have hopes for. Let me think. Now they're calling it the Suicide Squad because it's not the same. And yeah. And I mean, Wonder Woman 84 is definitely, I can't really imagine Patty Jenkins doing a bad job. I'll admit that I haven't seen that many, you know, I guess, yeah, it's just the 2 movies, but they're both so amazing, and it's genuinely, like, it is a super heroic feat. I'm sorry, but this is really itchy. With both of those movies, the fact that Monster and the Wonder Woman, the first solo movie, are so good when she had so many, like, it's very rare for your first big budget movie to be good. You know, there's usually some mistakes made. And you know, Monster had a lot of limitations, and you know, they didn't have a very big budget, and yeah, just it's anyway, you know, and isn't the villain like part cheetah or something like that? And I'm sure she's gonna be able to handle it. I mean, I'll admit that it's not the best stuff in the movie, but she did make Ares work, I felt. Anyway, but yeah, again, I take no pleasure in denouncing Man of Steel, BVS, Suicide Squad. I enjoy watching Suicide Squad and Justice League, you know. I don't want any of these movies to fail, but I gotta call them as I see them. Now, let's see. Let's see. Okay, I guess, yeah, I'm just gonna briefly mention that, yeah, it's got notes, time code, IMDb, Wikipedia, and critics sites. Now, I'm not offhand intending to spend forever here, but let me just briefly note. This is, this was earlier today, but I copied in 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's certified fresh. Let's see, 256 reviews, and only 23 of them were rotten, and the audience score is 90%. Now, let's see. And yeah, one review said, it's official, the Zack Snyder era of the DCU is over once and for all. And I just have to say, thank goodness. Look, I love some of his work. I just really don't think he's very... I don't especially want him directing franchise movies that, like, or at least not ones that are meant to compete with the MCU, because he's gonna go really, really dark. That's his strength lies in the dark. He can make really dark material really work, but it can't. Yeah. Let's see. And yeah, user who said, trailers barely show anything. Yeah, that I believe. I do think, excuse me, I do think they should have used the marketing, focused a little bit on other... I don't think that it was necessarily the best idea to just straight up focus completely on, yeah. Let's see. Some people said, my reminiscent of Power Rangers, and I can kind of see what they mean. And I mean, personally, I don't like. I don't hate the original, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which is the only one I've seen. I used to watch Linkara's, what's it called? That's the series he did on the Power Rangers shows. But that's the only exposure I've had to any show that wasn't Mighty Morphin. But yeah, I can see what they mean, especially by the very ending when, the Foster family all have superpowers and they're fighting the sins. And yeah, the Wikipedia notes, let's see, yeah, the 7 deadly sins all in the movie. The DCU continues the trend of overstuffed movies. I really, and I've seen others say, it didn't have to have this many characters. That really wasn't quite necessary. Now, director Sandberg stated that instead of de-aging an actor using special effects or CGI, he would cast both a child actor and an adult actor for the role of the main character. Thank goodness. That would have been ridiculous. I'm really, really glad that he didn't try to, yeah. I guess maybe that, let me think. Okay, let me just real quick. I'm skimming. I already did read these. Excuse me. reviews. I'm just skimming to see if there was something that I wanted to highlight. Now, some people have talked about how it would be good for the movie to be at least a little shorter, and I do think that's, yeah. Let's see. I do think that it might have been, yeah. I think if instead of, I get that they were going for, 7 deadly sins. I couldn't tell you anything about, I mean, obviously they're defined by the sin that they are, and I get that, okay, gluttony, it's got to be the one with the huge mouth on the huge stomach. But other than that, I couldn't tell you anything about, I don't know what the big bat one, I have no idea what sin that represents. And just, yeah, I think it could have been, really effective if instead of all 7, it had been like, okay, here's, 2 or 3, and then they all get, yeah. I guess, yeah, I think, okay, so let me just briefly, what were the other things that I thought the film did a really good job with the whole thing of, like, basically Billy wants to be by himself, and he doesn't, the Freddy, basically clearly Freddy needs friends, and he needs someone that, that doesn't think he's weird. He defines himself as weird. He's I forget, I think it's the foster mother, not the foster father, introducing the two, and it's like, don't say, don't say anything weird, don't say too many weird things or something. And immediately he says, did you know that the ancient Greeks would brush their teeth with urine? Oh, that's one weird thing. I mean, I guess it worked, right? Maybe it was ancient Romans, I forget, but so clearly he understands that people think he's weird and why people think he's weird. And he wants friends, but he's not really willing to compromise. He doesn't want to have to be a completely different person. He basically feels like they should accept him for who he is. Excuse me. And let's see. Yeah, while Billy is this, yeah, he doesn't really want to stay in any one place until he gets, until he finds his mother, and then he's going to live with her, and everything's going to be perfect. All these other people and these foster homes and all this stuff, it's just these, now I got to deal with these people who aren't my blood relatives, and I have to, there are expectations put on me, and who do they think they are? They're not my mother. That's how his mind goes. And when excuse me, he, this is that thing. He says, technically I never promised. You said that was going to happen. I never agreed to it, and we didn't discuss it beforehand. But yeah, Freddy really wanted him to show up at lunch, and he didn't. And it's not like he had better things to do. He was just standing around showing off his powers to get some money. He easily could have, but he's not used to other people expecting things of him. And he does actually feel a little bad, but it doesn't, only, by the end of the movie. By then, he has become a hero. He sees the bullies up in the Ferris wheel, and he's not like, well, they've treated us like crap. No, he's like, what kind of hero would I be if I didn't? I'm not going to let them die just because Thaddeus might kill me. That's not, so, and after right before the end credits start, he actually does show up, at, during lunch at Freddy's, and says, this guy is so cool, so it is maybe a little bit weird that it never occurred to Freddy to just do like, he films, so what, he can't like hold out the camera and stand next to Shazam? Excuse me. I like the joke about them, trying beer for the first time, spitting it out, and then going and buying snacks instead. Excuse me. Because, the flavors, And let's see. I think that, oh, that's right, there is another section. I had completely forgotten about that. There we go. And here we go, Okay, so I'll do that section, and then I think I have... Okay, so, rewatched for review. Review? I'm not entirely sure which it's going to be. One of those. Now, I have watched every DCU movie, and except for Aquaman, more than once. Its recent cinema library copy, as well as every other live action from 1978 onwards, Superman Batman film between my library streaming service and my DVD and VHS collection. I can watch them all legally for free. And the following DVDs in my own libraries. Director's cut of 2004's Dawn of the Dead. I own the original trilogy. 300, both 1 and 2. Sucker Punch, Green Lantern, Sin City, 1 and 2. V for Vendetta, Watchmen, each at least twice each, and at least once fairly recently, although, for Aquaman, not since then, since that really wasn't that long ago. Now, I also tried to rewatch and reread material in films of Folding Ideas, Renegade Cut, and Rooms of Rich Scripts. Did not rewatch Catwoman because I don't own it, and the library here streams it or lets you rent it, something I'm very grateful for. Now, let's see. I think there was a Nerdist video, Shazam, everything you need to know from our set visit, and they mentioned the movie's tone will be similar to Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, and The Goonies. Now, I rewatched Back to the Future trilogy and both Ghostbuster, the two old Ghostbuster movies. Have not watched the new one. I might at some point. Me not having watched it has nothing to do with the Ghostbusters being a female. Women are completely capable of being funny. It's just I don't care that deeply about the Ghostbusters franchise. I also haven't watched the show. It's just that when I was younger, me and a friend of mine, we watched the second Ghostbusters movie a bunch of times, and I think until recently I'd only watched Ghostbusters 1 once, but it was just, we didn't have a copy of it. Now, Ghostbusters 2 I rewatched a couple dozen times when I had it on VHS with a friend of mine some years back. I can't really defend that decision. There was less stuff to do on the internet back then. We didn't have access to as many good video games. In our defense, we did make fun of the bad things in the movie. Anyway, it was only watched once, and something I really love about the Back to the Future trilogy is the actors for at least the main characters, and certain supporting ones as well, really sell their characters. They are giving 110% for their performances. they may be acting through like age, makeup, some of the writing is, some of these lines are not easy to, but they are selling it. Like if acting was one of those things where I have to swing the hammer and hit the thing really hard to ding the bell, they would ding the bell every single time. Excuse me. Now, Back to the Future Part 2. I'm not going to talk about how Biff is, Biff is a lot like Trump, All I will say is, depending on the source, Biff either is or isn't based on Trump. I think it's entirely possible that he actually isn't based on Trump, or at least only only a little of it is based on Trump. It's just that the type of person that they wrote, directed, acted Biff to be is the same type of person that Donald Trump is, a stereotypical, self-serving bully. That doesn't mean that they were specifically thinking of him. Now, Ghostbusters 2 has a psychic say the world would end Valentine's Day of 2016, which we now know is ridiculous. It ended when Trump was elected. As amazing as the theme music to the original Ghostbusters movie is, the one from the second movie is better. If you're having trouble recalling them, both are here on YouTube. You're welcome. Obviously, the second movie is inferior to the first, but the second is not entirely without merit, even if it is only average as an overall movie, where the first is amazing. I don't agree with the Reaganism in it. I'm progressive, but it is an amazing film. And that is everything that I had noted. So I guess, let me briefly think. Yeah, another thing, the first time Freddy and Billy meet, it's like, you really don't have to talk so much, yeah. And he keeps psyching him out with, Game of Thrones and, Terminal, and yeah. Anyway, that is all the notes I had, so I hope you enjoyed watching, as I enjoyed watching and recording, and I'll catch you next time.